Blog Talk Radio. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Richard G. Medlock, your host, and that was the United States Army Band. That was a chorale, beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. This is October 13th, 2022. Yes, the holidays are sneaking up on us, aren't they? And some cooler weather, like I predicted. Back in September, I predicted that we're going to have a climate crisis of temperatures going down 10, 20, 30 degrees in the next couple of months. So my prediction is coming true. One of the few predictions of climate crisis. All right, today's episode is 66, Hispanic-American Women's Association. Now, the Medlock Post continues to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. This is a celebration of heritage, culture, beliefs, and accomplishments through the ages. This month brings happiness to everyone's face, wishing you and your loved ones a great day ahead. It is important that we look back in the history to the great civilizations of the Americas, Spain, and Portugal, and other countries, to fully understand and appreciate why we celebrate during a month-long period. We see their belief in strong families and their dedication to their religious beliefs. Their past heritage is so very important to who they are today. And to help us to continue this celebration and discuss the Hispanic Heritage Month is the president of Hispanic-American Women's Association, Patricia Vivas, and her family is from Colombia, South America. Patricia, welcome to the Medlock Post.
Good morning. Buenos dias. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on there. And we're going to have a great conversation, and people are going to be listening, and then it's going to go out virtual after this. So remember, you could end up talking to millions of people eventually on this. So But this conversation is between you and I, and if we get a caller to jump on, we'll add to that. Patricia, let me start out by asking you, what is the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month to you personally, to your family, to you, and to your organization?
Yes, so Hispanic Heritage Month was established mainly because there was about the independence of 5 different countries who went through September the 15th all the way to October 15th. And it also commemorate, October 12th, when Christopher Columbus and American Vespucci and all that time in the colonial time. It just encompassed what is called, it's literally called El Día de la Raza, which commemorates different, ethnicities and how we all came back to be together in the Americas with the colonization. So the importance of it is that it's to highlight and to show that we have various cultural backgrounds, various ethnicities, but even though we are different in many aspects, we are also very similar in great things. We're still, families. We have our values, our traditions. And that is sometimes, in general, for the Hispanic Heritage Month. It's celebrated here in the United States. As you know, we have a lot of countries from Central and South America, and some people that are that heritage. Perhaps they were born here, but they had parents that were immigrants and came from that, and have part of their culture are still very alive and there. So for me, it's a month. It's a time to highlight my roots and how proud I am of being born. I was raised in Colombia as well, but I've been here in this country, this wonderful country, for many, many years. And for AHAM itself, it's also a way to celebrate and to reach out to the community, and to not just the Latin community, but our community at large, to try to show also and showcase great things that we have that were different. For example, folklore, perhaps things like our traditional outfits that represent certain, part of those roots, art, and just a time to come together in the things that unite us and make us stronger.
Well, beautifully said. There's such strength in everyone's culture and in their history. And it doesn't matter if you're Hispanic or German or English or Japanese, there's strength in your heritage to know where you came from, what's that culture. And we had friends years ago from Greece, and they had to go to Brazil and wait there for like 8 years before they could make it to the United States. And while there, one of the sons married a Brazilian woman. And so they came here. They were our neighbors. We loved them. We're still in touch with them. And they always invited us over at Easter for that Greek festival for Easter, and it was phenomenal. But this is how we understand one another, not only as an individual, but as a culture, and then the similarities of the culture. And this is a beautiful thing, and that these efforts are made. And I'm trying to do my part. I did a thing on Juneteenth. I did a program just on Juneteenth. And we're trying to get people to open their eyes and stop this division and start looking at everybody as an individual and with a great history. How do you feel about those views, Patricia?
I completely agree with you. I think that when we can take some of ourselves, and those parts are different, and then we are not all let's put it in a way, square or all round or all over. We are not all exactly the same. We can get a much better general, much more harmonious, believe it or not, a much more complete anything. In other words, I'm going to give an example, and I love food, we will definitely, I think that's one of the things that we are very different, because it's very different and different dishes, talking about cultural and Hispanic heritage. We all have various differences in terms of our food, even within the Latin culture or even within a country. So I think it would be almost boring if we only would have one way to eat beans or one way to have a salad. So it's precisely that diversity which makes this delicious dish. And a lot of people, and in this month, for example, don't realize that even within the Latin culture, there are so many differences. And people sometimes assume that we all come from, let's say, just to put a name, or a country, Mexico, because it's the most immediate, is the one that is the closest to the United States. And then just in general, we all caught up like, are you Mexican? Or do you speak Mexican? When they don't, people sometimes don't even realize that Mexican is not a language. It's a country. Or they will think, do you eat spicy? Like I am Colombian. And we don't. In general, we don't eat spicy hot food. But a lot of people think that because just, I could have an accent, or I'm coming from Colombia. So to get back to the point, I will just completely reaffirm that when we have different points of view, when we have different ways to analyze and view and see life and see events, we will come out with a much better outcome because it's a rich outcome. Now, we do have to know how to respect, differentiate, and value different perspectives. But that is a human thing. That has not necessarily to do where I come from, but just a simple respect of my fellow kind. So it is sometimes more accentuated because, we have traditions and origins and differences. But I think even with science, it's proved that when you think in various ways, it's an easier way to solve a problem.
Yeah, it's to be open to new ideas. Now,
Exactly.
I'm with you about the food. I love Latino food. I'm not going to just say Mexican because that's what everybody. Oh, let's go to the Mexican restaurant, or let's go get some Mexican food or something like that. And that's just been stereotyped over the years. And I'm from the South. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, and then I went to Arizona State University. Two totally different cultures, climates, and the works. And I went out there, and I went to a restaurant right off the bat. I grew up eating grits, right? So I go out to a restaurant to have breakfast one day, and I'll have a couple of eggs and some bacon and some grits. Half the people in the restaurant turned around and looked at me and said, "What are you talking about?" They'd never heard of grits. And
and they're missing out, right?
Yeah, look at it.
Absolutely. And like, for example, there is certain commonalities. Let's keep up with the subject of food. We do have beans and rice and a meat, but the way that it is perhaps eaten in one country, like Mexico, which is like smash almost, it's very different that sometimes that they do it in Puerto Rico, they do it in Colombia, or different variety. Is there a common thing? Sure. We have beans, we have rice, but that's not the only thing. We have a great many other varieties. So we have to be careful with, a stereotype. And then I think it's one of our responsibilities as people is to sometimes, look in others that the difference is not necessarily something negative. That is something which I can learn and I can grow. And AHAM wanted to show that precisely, that we are a good different variety. For example, in our organization, we have representation of we are right now more than 68 members of, people, ladies of multinational origins. Some come from South America, from Central America, pretty much almost all the countries. And then it's also multi-generational. We have younger, we have grandmas, we have moms, and different, coming from different industries. Some are homemakers, some work in big companies, corporations, some have their own business. But all of that comes all together when we are here working for a cause and just viewing and even learning, even with different language, different words that we use, all it does is just make, as I was saying, a final product richer. It makes us view things in different ways and makes us appreciate the others and makes us, at least in my opinion, also say, I am proud of, our weight as well, and how can I cooperate and explain or perhaps share that with other cultures and other people so we appreciate each other.
Well, it's all a learning process, and I love the point you make. If we all wanted to eat the same beans all the time, that would get real boring. And the same thing with people. If I tried to make everybody like me, that would get boring. But I think I learned that with my parents. My brother and I were as different as night and day. They didn't try to make one of us, they didn't try to make me as the younger brother like my older brother. They knew I had different talents than him, and very different talents. And they knew that here's the older brother, or the older son, here's the younger son, and they've got to be treated as who they are. And I think if the world can come up with that mindset to first try to find out who this person is and come to an understanding of who they are. And that's something you and I were talking about right before we came on the air, was the short amount of time that you and I have had to really communicate to prepare for this. So it's opening your mind to learning, to be educated by an individual about themselves. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, and I am that. I am saying that, and I even will go even further to say I have to have an open mind to know about others, but I need to accept that people are different, and that it's okay to be different, and it is a positive thing to be different. So again, from the enriching point of view, that we build on our difference, as you were saying with your brother, that we build on our different talents and we complement each other.
That's right. And my brother and I learned how to do that. So and
that's
so,
what our teamwork is, and that's something that we have at AHAM. So as I was saying, this is a group of passionate women about education, and we are 100% volunteers. So we have our regular jobs and daily activities, but we are there with all of our differences, trying to complement and then go for this one goal, our one mission and vision.
That's right. And since you mentioned that, let me read from your website, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
We are AHAM, the Hispanic-American Women's Association. We are a group of hardworking women who are passionate about education and culture. All of us are committed to helping the Hispanic population achieve a better future through higher education, and we make it all happen through the magic of volunteerism. I love that phrase, the magic of volunteerism, because I've worked with so many organizations that depended on the volunteers to get the work done. So tell us a little bit about that magic of volunteerism within your organization.
Absolutely. As I was saying, all of us are volunteers. Nobody gets pay. We have been for about 25 years. The organization started, and we are growing. And next year it will be our big 25, and we're very proud of it. So as I was saying, from a regular a member to the people that comprise the executive committee, we all volunteer. So there are different levels. There are some people that perhaps can volunteer for a special event. There are some people that can, for example, they can come to our festival and represent their country in one of our, with the table and having some exposure and teaching about their own country. And they do it at one time. But most of us do this all year round. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of extra time that it is done basically all day for those who can, have that flexibility. For those who go to work, then we do it, because I'm one of them, then we do it in non-working hours, or we just take sometimes time of our vacation. We do this, organized over the weekend to do all the things that we need to do, all our events that we participate with the community in order to prepare and raise those funds all year round. So that's one of the examples with the members. But so it's not only attending the meetings, organizing, participating, but also volunteering, cooperating with other organizations, other nonprofits, also just one-on-one with some. Obviously, we do this for our students. And then when we have events, we also have opportunities for generally the people in general and our allies to come and help us. We just have our 23rd AHAM Hispanic Heritage Festival and on October 2nd at the Fluor Field, and we just needed a ton of help, and we had about 101 volunteers, because this year, I am happy to say, it was a great success. We just had the biggest festival ever, and we needed a lot of help, and it was so, great to hear and to see the response of the public and our volunteers. So we have, again, students, or we have just a regular community members, so people who just want to help because they know it's for a good cause. It's for all the funds go for us to collect money to help students that are underserved and students that have lower income and they're, Hispanic descendants, and they want to go to school. They have great grades, good grades, but they don't have enough money to go to colleges or just to achieve their higher education. So we have all of these volunteers, which we are so very grateful for, and that's what I think is the magic. It's just people seeing that we are doing this, that I'm investing my time. I could have been doing something else, but I'm doing this out of my heart because I see the good in it, and because I see how this is a worthy cause and how can it really change people's lives.
Well, that's wonderful, and it's called commitment, ladies and gentlemen, and it's also called love for your fellow man. And that's a great story that you just told about your organization and how it works. Now, your mission statement is this: increase the rate of Hispanic youth entering the higher education through training, social management, and the promotion of culture and the provision of scholarships in the South Carolina upstate. And your vision statement: through higher education and growth opportunities, Hispanic youth and women are an active part in the development of the community. Now, could you explain those? I mean, those are short but powerful statements. And I think, let me throw a quote in here from Ellen Ochoa, Hispanic individual. Quote, "Education is what allows you to stand out," unquote. So with your mission statement and your vision statement and that quote, how are you accomplishing, other than raising money, accomplishing the mission and vision, and how is that affecting those that you are serving?
Absolutely. Well, let me start for telling you and sharing with you that I am a firm believer the power that education has, the changing power that education has in an individual's life. Part of my background, I'm actually a teacher. I am a licensed teacher of foreign languages, and I have seen how education is one of the few means in which people can better their life and they can improve from one generation to the next. I think I am also one of those examples, and this is something that happens not just in the United States or in South America, but I think this is worldwide in general. I was born, as I said, in Colombia, not really an affluent family, just a middle class. But my parents originally came from, they finished high school, and they came from a town, and they came, I was born and raised in the city, in the capital, and I went, and my dad always knew that education, he was a professional athlete, and he always knew that he said to me many times, he said, I might not give you a great inheritance, but your biggest inheritance will be the ability that I will do all my best to help you and support you to go to college. Your education will be your inheritance. And I will never forget that because I truly believe that. So as a result, from my parents who did not went to college, me and my two brothers went and finished and went to college and got our college degrees. And one thing led to the other, as I was saying, I was a teacher in foreign languages. So I always wanted to utilize the language and go and see other parts of the world. And life just threw me here by chance. And I think it's a great thing. It was, in my past, it wasn't originally intended. But I see that repeating itself here. I was a teacher as well here. And I could see how in some of the students, again, underserved here, I was in the Greenville County teacher. I taught at Hughes Academy, which is one of the magnet schools. Mm-hmm. And I've seen students who also, over that school, you have a mix of affluent students and other students who do have a lot of economical and socioeconomical issues. But those who carry on in the path of going to education to finish their high school and focusing on to college have bettered themselves in one or two generations. And not only it's better for them in their own lives, but then most of the time they also see the difference and hopefully they go and help our communities. We have many examples of those in our AHAM recipients. We have some very compelling stories in which this here, through education, you can have a true impact and, in your life, in your community. And once you are aware of that, especially if you come in that path, you're proud of what you have achieved and you promote culture, your roots. You just simply want to help and give back to the community. And that's why we do what we do.
Well, you can't say it any better than that about education. Because when a student wants to learn, of course, that makes it easier, but it's developing in them their self-confidence, their self-esteem, and helping them accept themselves for who they are, whether, again, no matter what their background cultural is or generations, it's helping them to understand better who they are, their talents and abilities, and how they can apply them in life, and not only for themselves, but their future families, but also how they can help others throughout their community. So when we start looking at the tentacles that are going out there through your work, then we're seeing a better community come out of this. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And so what we're doing is we are almost creating a conscious of how education is important. We're trying to guide, to have, and we're starting to work, and we have in the work to create new programs in which we not only want to give scholarships, but perhaps like a mentoring program, a program like a buddy system as well, in which we help the student see about that potential. Because it's so important that sometimes, especially when we are in middle or high school, we're so young. We're still learning so much. We don't always necessarily know what path to go or what's out there and our own potential, as students of that age or in general. So we're trying to do that. And then once the students go and see that they can do, then the sky is the limit. We have had students who, as I was saying, they are first-time generation. The parents or the grandparents never attended college. And then some of them actually, they barely finish also high school. This year we have a recipient student, in which that was exactly her testimony. I was saying, I am very grateful to AHAM because it's giving me the chance to help me go to college. I am the first person to go to college in my family. And then we have had also students that have already gone through college, and then they have been working in nonprofits. They are going out to be doctors, engineers, real estate agents, and then they also try to go back. So as a matter of fact, one of the things that we do is that we ask our students to also give back to the organization with their time, volunteering as well, through the projects that will help other students. And in the long way, they just see that is the path, and they are grateful and they want to come and do that. So we have had students that, as I said, never thought that they really will get where they are now. And it's been just a complete circle in which, they were able to go to school, to finish, to go and contribute and be out there in the workforce. And then once they were out there, just come back and keep on volunteering and helping other students who came, before them.
Oh, yeah, it's that give back. I've achieved something.
Exactly.
Now let's do the give back. Let's help those like I was helped, etc. And I think you mentioned the word tutor, and that's an important, or a mentor. Those are two important things that I see in America right now, that a mentor and a tutor right now can be so important in the lives of young people, no matter who you are. But are you familiar with Unity Health on Main Street?
Not exactly, but I would love to know about it if you.
Okay, all right. I'll send you their information. But they're a clinic, and they serve 95% of their clientele is Hispanic, and we've done a lot of work with them, helped them with many things. And during the shutdown, when the kids were at home trying to learn on the computer, and they had some challenges, some of their parents would call and say, "Look, we don't speak enough English to help with their homework. Our kids are falling behind." And I was able to help get some tutors out there to help these students. And once these tutors came in, and it was all done virtually because of the lockdown and all the pandemic scare and all that. But all of a sudden, they had a tutor that could work with them one-on-one, could also help the student or the parents have a better understanding. And all of a sudden, wham, they were just taken off again with their education process. So these are important. So I'm going to throw a pitch out for you here. And if you're in the upstate of South Carolina and would like to help the Hispanic-American Women's Association, go to AHAM, SC, ahamsc.org, and go on there, look at the website, and there's a place to volunteer. And you can click that, and you can volunteer and help this organization out. There's so many things that we can do in our community. Here's another one, folks. Now, let me ask you this question, Patricia. You have AHAM SC. Are there other organizations like yours throughout the country?
You mean education organizations or other chapters of AHAM?
Other chapters of AHAM or organizations like yours in the Hispanic community that is helping with education or other things?
AHAM, it's mainly East Coast SC because it's from South Carolina, and we are mainly on the App State. And as I said, we focus on education, although we have done other activities. But I know that there are other organizations, they have different targets, but there are other organizations throughout the nation that try to help, students, and then try to help the Latino community that is especially underserved, whether it is with guide them to go to school, to stay in school. There are these various programs, as you were saying, like this tutoring, and there are others in which they have small, partial, money scholarships that they can help, or just they work with their family, or they have different things. So I do believe, yes, there are some other ones. There is just, our population is, and our country is big, so they are all located, in a more regional, as far as I know. But yes, there are some other ones. We sometimes collaborate with some other nonprofits. Like, for example, we work with the Commission of Minority Affairs that is based in Colombia. We locally also, we just sometimes exchange information or, try to attend seminars or vice versa with La Alianza Hispana. But, and there is Alianza Spartanburg, for example, or there is another organization called PASOS, but they all have different objectives. We all want to help the community, absolutely. And it goes back to that, and that's what, to your point originally, we just believe that, it's some of our objectives, right? Our main one is to provide financial assistance to students through scholarships, but we want to extend these other programs because really the work is a lot. It is too much to do. It demands a lot of time, preparation, and we just need more resources, and that's when our volunteers, come into place, just like you were mentioning. And of course, we want to strengthen the understanding of the Hispanic culture in the community, because I think that in the long run, for other people that are not familiar with it, would just lead into better relations, better community, more collaboration. So yes, we want to promote and develop more educational programs, and also organize, cultural events like this one. And we also work with other nonprofit agencies with projects that will, benefit the community, but also like this year, if I might say, for example, we also work with government or government programs. And if I might say, you were talking about how can you help us, and go over there and you go to our website. Our last opportunity to help us with, some of the funds is at the same time an opportunity to volunteer for the city of Greenville. So this weekend is going to be, do you know what it's going to be? What festival is going to be this weekend in Greenville, South Carolina?
Yes, the Fall for Greenville Festival.
Exactly, Fall for Greenville. So we have partnered the last 3 years, approximately, no more, with Fall for Greenville, with the city. And what happened is, when you go and volunteer for the city, there are different organizations in which you can volunteer on their behalf. So I invite everybody out there that is listening. I invite everybody else that wants to help, our cause to help the students, Latin students, to go to college and to have an opportunity to be better for themselves and for the community, to go and volunteer and the Fall for Greenville. What they have to do is they have to go to the website of Fall for Greenville and then select the organization. And if you select AHAM, then Fall for Greenville will give us like some donation, some money according to the hours that are volunteer, which will go directly to the fund for our scholarship for our students.
Well, that's a great advertisement for Fall for Greenville. For those listeners outside of the area, it is a major, major fall event, and many nonprofit organizations, restaurants, you can eat, you can play games. They have different types of music, and a lot of cities have things like this. And we participated a couple of years, but these were a lot of disabled people, and it was very challenging for them. So they just said that's just too much for us and the families to circumvent the parking and the hills and things like that. But again, there's opportunities, and it looks like they're going to have a beautiful weather weekend for Fall for Greenville.
So yeah, we have had a very strong participations in previous years. I myself participate, and I brought my children, and I brought my husband, and I brought my neighbors and my friend, and said, let's all go to participate. And we volunteered at Fall for Greenville. It's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's going to be a beautiful weather. And there is various positions, so you can go on the website, select the position, select AHAM, and then they will have a registered. And as I said, towards the end, when we have all the volunteers, so they go. So this is an excellent opportunity. And again, it's our last opportunity to volunteer with AHAM. It's because we just had the festival, and we have all of these great response, which we are so thankful for our volunteers. I know we're kind of asking because it was recently in October, and this is this upcoming weekend. But as I said, those are the main two, and this is also a great opportunity for students, high school students, or other students that, sometimes they are required to get community service, and then we will, give them the confirmation, the letter that they need saying, yes, they were volunteers on our behalf, and, of course, we don't do it and we don't encourage it. We do it for that. We just, students and people in general, just do it because we love to volunteer and have a great community. But I'm just saying, for those students who need it, we will provide the certificate.
Okay. You had your festival on October 2nd, which almost got canceled because of Hurricane Ian, and you guys just at the last minute said, nope, we're doing it, and then the weather cleared out, and we didn't get much of Hurricane Ian here. We got a little bit of rain, mostly wind, but you had a great festival. I think there was, 2,500 people that attended, which is a great
Correct.
turnout. But you have something else that is coming up, I think, next month.
Actually, so thank you for bringing that up about the AHAM Festival. We were super excited because the festival is been happening for 20, 30 years consecutive. Well, we even in the pandemic time, we did have an online version because we have the two main fundraisings, and one of those is the festival. So you are correct. We were on the verge of almost closing it, and thank God, things kind of turned, and it was a very, very big, a lot of organization, a lot of things. We had representation of about 18 different Latin American countries. We also have a part for art. We had collaboration with the Children's Museum, so we have activities for the children. We have it started at 12 and finished at 6. And we had an entire parade of nations, as I was saying, with each country having, some of the typical outfits, folkloric outfits, as well as all the crafts. We have vendors. We obviously have our sponsors. And we have a cultural program that was covered from, throughout the entire festival. So we had a mariachi band. We have, folkloric dancing companies that have, for example, dances from Mexico, from Colombia, and these are all from students and community. We also have a regular band that plays salsa and rock and español and merengue. So it was a lot of fun, and it was we were ecstatic to see the response of our public because it was the first time that we had it in that venue at the Fluor Field and the downtown Greenville. Before it used to be done at McAllister Square. So that's where many was.
Let me explain. Fluor Field is the home of the Boston Red Sox AA baseball team here in Greenville. And this field is a regular size field. It even has the green wall like they do in Boston. They built the field just like in Boston. So it's fascinating, and a lot of events are held there. So you have a gala coming up, which is another
Correct.
fundraiser. When is that, and so what's going on with that?
So that was the festival, which is our main one, and for various reasons, normally we started celebrating the Hispanic Heritage Month within the month. The gala, it's normally later. It's going to happen this year on October the 22nd at the Poinsett Club, and we have, again, please go to our website, and when you go to our website, there is a direct link in which you can purchase the tickets for the gala. So we will have over there, it's a night of, we're going to showcase and have some testimony of some of our scholar recipients telling us a little bit about their story. We will have also some of our major sponsors explaining and addressing the attendees as to why they do what they do with us, with our organization, with AHAM, and how they see the value in helping educational purposes and collaborating with us for the students. We're going to have a wonderful meal. It's a buffet. It's included, and we're going to have live music and with a band. And then, so it will be super exciting. It's going to be, as I said, a night of recognition and truly understanding and showing what we're all about and why it's important to do this, besides fun and great food.
Well, and it's just a great time, but it's another one of your big fundraisers, which organizations have to have as nonprofits. You don't.
Correct.
And also you take donations any time of the year, which you can do on
Absolutely.
the website.
Absolutely. Please go, and there's a button of donate there. We have all kind of in-kind and then donations because we are a charity. So we also, in case somebody wants to, we can give them that as a charity so they can be discounted in your taxes.
Yes, 501c3. Okay.
That's correct.
Let me switch now. You're the president at this time, and Janice Garcia, who was supposed to be on today but had something come up. Again, these ladies work. They have jobs, and this is not full-time with AHAM. So she probably has something come up at work, but we'll get her on at another time. She's the president-elect. But I want to ask you this question. Is when you became president, did you have some personal goals that you wanted to achieve for the organization that you were becoming president for?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to do is continue the kind of renovation and revitalization that we were having with our past president. So our past president, her name is Vanessa Campana, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say where do I work. Is it okay to say where I work?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so I do work at Michelin, the tire company. So you're right, you have a full-time job at Michelin. And Vanessa also works at Michelin. As a matter of fact, she's one of the ones that recruited me, told me about the organization and corporations like Michelin support the community. So that's what I started in AHAM, because they wanted to have, I was the liaison between the company, and then they said, hey, there is this organization that we think it's a great organization, promotes education, diversity. We would like you to be the liaison. So I started as a member, and then I went to the executive committee, and then Vanessa was the president while I was the president-elect. And so we started. I'm explaining this because my objective was to continue on that growth. So you were talking about the pandemic. So most of our, as you see, our fundraisers were in person, the festival and the gala. And when the pandemic hit, we were like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? We were thinking, how are we going to do it? We cannot get together. We were almost thinking, can we, get and collect some money? How? So we thought kind of like start brainstorming. And that's when we came up with the online festival. And then we did, when things went outdoors with all the, recommendations by the government about doing something, that's when we did also a bazaar, a Christmas bazaar, who was the first one, as to try to, still come up with some funds. And what we did is not only we maintained, but we grew. We grew despite the pandemic, and we were able to give more scholarships to more students. So my objective was to continue with that and take the organization almost to the next level. And this year, with the celebration of the festival at the Fluor Field, that has already accomplished. We have had double of the attendance that used to go to our festival. We have had great exposures. We were very, very happy, and I thank you as well for the opportunity to let all our listeners to know about this great cause. We have grown in terms of memberships, and I think we have created more awareness as to what, Hispanic Heritage Month is, what AHAM is, and all the things that we've done. So that was my objective, to continue on that path of growth and revitalization, and let's continue sending out the message and work really hard and efficiently to even give more scholarships, to have more recipients, and to grow the scope of our mission with these other programs that we're saying, not just get. As a matter of fact, we have a whole workshop at the beginning of the year with the executive where we just, tackle this to get even more structured, more organized, more efficient, and just continue on that path of growth.
Well, yeah, that's great. You were focused, you understood the organization, and you've been achieving your goals. That's great. Now, let me ask you this. Do you work at the headquarters off the Parkway for Michelin?
Up to last year, I did. Yeah. So in my time with Michelin, I work over there, and I was on the more customer service and commercial side, and the headquarters right there in that Pelham Road. And then, but I also have always I'm also part of what we call the BRG's Business Resource Unit, the Hispanic Network. So I'm also an active member of the Hispanic Network, as so is Vanessa and some of our exec members right now. So one of the great things that Michelin has is that they're a little bit flexible. Some companies, when you start in one area, you can only be that pretty much all your career around. So he goes another example, and what I think it's been a good match as to being flexible and allow differences. So as an employee, obviously it has a certain process, but we can change our area, which we call internally métier, since it's a French company. So I went from that to the recruiting side, which is an area that I always wanted to go, human resources, because I'm working with people. I'm also having extending and creating, and now I work in one of the plants in Spartanburg. So I spend most of the time in there, and now I'm doing recruiting and trying also to promote within also our work, my work, diversity, and that's something that is very important for the company. So is to collaborate with the community, promote diversity, and that's one of the pillars that we have. So I've been trying to do that. So, yes, up to last year around this time, it's going to be almost a year that I am working at the plant, at the Spartanburg plant.
I was going to say, if you were in the headquarters, I'm just 3 blocks from the headquarters. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I have to go there. I have to go there on Monday precisely because there are some other, and this is what I mean in terms of growth. We just bring, our, and we go back, our knowledge, our strengths. So they have been a growth of about 5. Now it's about 5 members that work in our company that have seen, the value in AHAM, and now they are members. So that are in different areas, project managers, sales, IT, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I was saying, although our commonality is that we are part of the BRG, of the Hispanic Network, and also now we're part of AHAM. But this is open to everybody and anybody. And so with our strengths, we just try to help the community the best we can.
And ladies and gentlemen, you're probably sitting there, why are you so focused on the upstate of South Carolina? We're not. These things are going on in your communities. It might not be about education, but it's about supporting the Hispanics, helping them get a better life, helping the underserved, and moving forward and helping them become more ingrained into the American culture, into education. And I mentioned tutors earlier because that's a great need within the Hispanic community that we have found here in the upstate. And it might be the same in your community. So school districts are starting to recognize this and make some adjustments that, we need to help the students, but we also need to help their parents because of their lack of English skills. So the parents can be more help in the children's education process. But the focus here is about understanding different cultures, different peoples, so you can reach out to them. You can have a desire to want to get to know them. Now, Patricia, let me ask you this. This is right off the top of my head because I'm heavy into this with my family. But is in your community, is there a lot of talk about doing genealogy work or family history work to go back and understand where they came from, what their ancestors did, whether it was good or bad? I mean, I've got some black sheep, but I've got some great ancestors that did some great work in America and in other countries. Is there a focus on that in your community?
I would say that it's not as structured as it is here, like in the States, and particularly with new things like, these kits that, science that you can have your DNA or your ancestrology. I think it's something that you go and look at that family branch through records. So we do, but not as a structure. I think it's more of a oral, history that that passed generation to generation. But part of the reason of that is that we, I think, view things slightly different. Let me give you an example. The United States, it's made out of immigrants. And, in all main generation, whether it was the last wave or wave at the beginning, but there were also indigenous people here who were very, very different. So without getting too back into history, I would say that the main difference was that through Latin America, Central and South America, we have been more integrated from many more years ago. In other words, that integration came almost from the colonial time until, the 19th, 20th century. And so when people used to ask me, what are you? I never thought of race and what was my race until I came to this country and people asked me. I always used to say I'm Colombian.
Yeah.
And most people would say that. We did have, just like in here, unfortunately, the slavery. So we did have, ethnicities that came from the slaves from Africa. And we have indigenous peoples, and we have the Europeans, who came with mainly Spaniards, but even English went all the way down to even Colombia. There was a battle in November. It was November the 11th, and it was a battle in a town called Cartagena, in which, in the colonial time, the French wanted to take over the back then already independent Colombia, just like it happened in independence here. Here it was George Washington. In Colombia, it was Simón Bolívar, and it was exactly the same process, just a little bit later. But also when the British colonizers were trying to take over as well. So my point is that we had all of that mix, just like it is in North America. Exactly, all of that is the same. We had the plantations, the cotton, we had the tobacco, all exactly. But the actual ancestry, if you want to call it, the actual integration between all of these different races, if you want to call it, came way much deeper. So as a result, we really didn't think much about it until recently, that we never used to think I'm white Colombian or white Mexican or Indian or different, or we just were Colombians or Mexicans or Peruvians or whatever. So that's a distinction, just like in the ancestry, that I have found very unique to the United States.
Yeah. I mean, when you do follow your family lines, I mean, it can lead you to a lot of places. And my ancestry is mostly Western Europe, and Scotland, Ireland, Britain, and that area, and then coming to Americas, I had ancestors on the Mayflower. So coming down from there, and ancestors that had prominent positions in the colonies before the Revolution and also during the Revolution. So it's interesting to look at your history, and then those that, as you come down the Civil War in America and so forth, and you're saying there's same types of histories in Colombia and other countries, because the Spanish came in and tried to take over, the French came in, and the British were not, and the English,
yes.
And they all came in. They wanted to control everything. So
that's right.
You had to, and that's part of the Hispanic Heritage Month, is all these countries, and Colombia is one of them, that declared independence during this September 15th to October 15th, different years. These countries in South and Central America were saying, we've had enough here, folks. And I think it was around the 1821 years before and years after, in that era, that they were declaring their independence, and hopefully our independence in America was influencing them to say, hey, yeah, let's step out here. So there's such great histories, and you see, I'm learning something from you about your home country and these other countries, and not realizing what they went through, basically the same thing our colonists did to gain their independence and their freedom.
Exactly like that. And as a matter of fact, as you're saying, when you go to school, and I remember being a child and having my history classes and geography, one of the things that we said that I remember very well that we were taught is how, when you analyze an event, a historical event, you see, well, what are the influences, what are the causes, what were the effects? And one of them was the independence of the United States. So it's kind of like what it always has happened throughout history. It's a wave of things that happen. So I know that the independence of the United States came first, and then as time went by, different countries were having their independence also of, who was the colonizers. They just happened to be for, again, history, just like in South America, Brazil, speaks Portuguese because there was a treaty, because it was the Portuguese and the Spaniards who made a treaty and said from here to here, it will be the colonies of, Spain, and these are the territory we belong to Portugal. That's why Brazilians speak Portuguese. And it was a very similar story. That's how people from England and the Pilgrims came they just came on north, and that's where they came to what is now the United States of North America. But if you go back, there were parts of Mexico that up to recent, or parts that now are in the United States that used to belong to Mexico. We have that influence, like, the Spaniard castles, like in Florida, or even here in South Carolina and Fort Sumter, and it's very similar. There is, I think, even in the Keys, there is a fortress who was originally Spaniard. So it is just all throughout history, and that's what I'm saying. People sometimes don't realize how much more in common we have rather than the difference. It was very, very similar process. And also, you mentioned about what you have found. I found, being here, I got one of those tests, and I realized that I have a little bit of, I have mostly my descendants are from the descendants of the Aztecs, but I also have a good deal from Spain, so Europeans, and I even have some little bit of, I think it's 0.2% of Nigerian, and also from Asia, from Japan. So I was quite surprised to find out that this was supposed to be, my origins. I literally have a little bit of all different continents. So I was curious.
And it is interesting because I got mine back, and it showed that I had like 2% Moroccan. And so I'm going out of Africa.
I even have part of which is of the Norway, and I was very surprised because I love history, and I knew that being from Colombia and Latin America, most of what I thought would be my ancestry would be mostly indigenous, because I told you we were part of it. And then Spaniard. Both my last names come from different areas in Spain. So, yeah, that was my biggest part, but I had no idea that also I had, ancestors from Norway and the Viking region.
Well, in Nigeria, and I think Spain had some big holdings there at some time, and also the British, but through the hundreds and hundreds of generations, a lot of these things just get mixed, and
absolutely.
And when you get when the Spanish first came after Columbus, they did a lot of marrying in the Americas, and
yes.
So you have that, and then you have the British and the French, and then of course the Vikings came over into North America, and those people probably traveled south. So there's so many things that are fascinating that you get into it, and you can just spend hours and hours in figuring out what's going on. And what I did is I went back and I said, okay, why is there Moroccan in my history? And I found out that way back when, one of my ancestors in Britain was assigned to Morocco when it was a British colony as their adjutant. Wasn't really the governor, but he was pretty high minister or something like that. While he was there, he married a Moroccan woman. So,
yeah, it is interesting, and it goes to say again that sometimes we're not even aware, of. I certainly never thought that I would have, even though it's a small percentage. I was always expecting a little bit of a bigger percentage of African descendant, because I knew about, the mixture, as I was telling you, from the very beginning. But obviously it wasn't as much in my ancestry. But I certainly didn't know about Japanese. I mean, I thought, what? This is an interesting thing. But But obviously I identify as Latin, and the main percentage is from Spain and some, from the indigenous people, which in Colombia it's called the Muiscas, but it's the descendants of the Aztecs, because there was the people who was here in the Americas, all of it before anybody, any colonists, any colonizers, whether they were British or French, there was lots of them. So it makes only sense to think that there will be some of all of those ancestors in me. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, you're proud of it. There were a lot of people that migrated from Asia. Look at Hawaii. Those people are mostly Asian. Mm-hmm. And then they stopped there, and then they kept coming to America, to the Americas. And so it's fascinating. And I think this is a point we need to look at here, folks, is that if you do your DNA and your search, you find out that you have such a mix in you, and that it shows we're all the same humans. We're all one people. And, you hear the phrase, if we keep going back far enough, we'll find out we all came from Adam and Eve. And so it's fascinating. And these are lessons that we can learn from doing our research, finding out, did I have ancestors that did something important, or they were just farmers or ranchers, or did they just work in mills? Were they slaves? What was going on here? And you build on that and you say, this is who I am. And so here are some things I want to make sure any of my ancestors going forward will become slaves again. So there's all kind of things to focus on, and then it boils back to one thing, Patricia, that your organization focuses on, and it's education.
Exactly. Education. So it all goes back knowing as to also who we are, is knowing as to take education to move forward and also to build a better life for those who acquire and can reach, because education is so important in people's lives and communities. And when we educate, and that's part also one of our objectives, which is to try to educate other people. With our festival, we do it, about how we contribute. I mean, there's been studies out there, and we definitely have the studies how here in, how much the population is growing, but it's vibrant and it's not, unfortunately sometimes certain media, only portray the bad things. Only, we stereotype, and then we don't see really how all of these groups, and definitely Latins, and I know for a statistic that we have here in the Upstate where we go, how much they contribute back into the workforce and into producing, things and goods and just make our economy strong. So one of the things that, for example, I love to highlight, as I said, is that we have a couple of the scholar recipients that we've almost done a full circle. So companies, in this case, and again, I'm just looking for what I know, which is, for example, Michelin, sponsor part of it of AHAM. So AHAM, as a nonprofit, helped a student to go to college, to help them go through it. And eventually we have two cases in which it went full circle. So it's this to see how the industry should support our community, the community help the individuals, and then the individuals that have been helped, and then they go back and help the communities and go back to the industry. So we have two cases of students who were AHAM recipients that now, after they were able to go to college, and now working for Michelin. And to be honest, we only found out this recently, so it went the full circle, but it could be anybody and everybody. It's just the fact that I have the chance to help, and then one day that person will give us a hand. They will help us, and they will give that benefit back. And that's something that is very important and that I have seen in our students, as I said. there was one case of one of our students who came from Mexico, and his family, older family, was in a circus, and they were performers. So as a result, as these young men had not gone to school, eventually they came here, and they went to formal, high school. And not only this person finished high school, and I can't remember the story exactly, but he didn't continue anymore on that business, but had the chance, with help through AHAM, went to college, and now he is working in a nonprofit to help other students. And when education is strong, when we are aware of who we are, and also when we are aware of others, and we embrace that with our differences and see the positive in it, we have a stronger communities and happier people.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just read some quotes from Hispanic. Most of them are famous. To reiterate what you're saying here, and this is from Dolores Huerta: "We must use our lives to make the world a better place to live, not just to acquire things. That is what we are put on earth for." So your young man is trying to make the world a better place to live. And Sonia Sotomayor, who was a Supreme Court justice, she said, "The Latina in me is an ember that blazes forever." She embraces who she is, her heritage. We should never give that heritage away. Now, I'm from the South. I'll never give my Southern heritage away. Even though I went out west, people just say, "Oh, you've got to, you can't do that anymore. You're a Confederate. You can't fly that flag." And I said, "I'll fly that flag every day beside the American flag, because that's who I am." Now, I probably just offended half the audience out there, but you know what? When you're offended, you're a fool. So let's see. Cesar Chavez said, "Preservation of one's own culture does not require contempt or disrespect for other cultures." Again, when you're learning about your own culture, you're going to learn about other cultures because they've all intermixed. As we discovered earlier, as you and I were talking about, how through the DNA we found out how these cultures mixed. Carlos Santana, the great musician: "The most valuable possession you can own is an open heart. The most powerful weapon you can be is an instrument for peace." That gives me chills, folks. And then Pope Francis, who is from Brazil, a little bit
from
of
Argentina.
mercy, or excuse me, that's right, Argentina. I'm sorry. A little bit of mercy makes the world less cold and more just. And we've talked about that on this show. Showing mercy to people. Be forgiving. And George Lopez, the actor, says, "No particular race is the enemy. Ignorance is the enemy." And then Isabel Allende, Allende.
Allende. Mm-hmm.
Allende, okay. I cannot speak Spanish, as you can tell. She
You were
says,
doing great.
"Hey, as long as I know taco and burrito and all that stuff, I'm
That's
I'm
right.
happy."
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
All right. She says, "You only have what you give. It's by spending yourself that you become rich." And I saved that to last. And let me read it again, folks. You only have what you give. It's by spending yourself that you become rich. What do you think of that, Patricia?
I completely agree with that, because I have always thought that even though people might think it's cliche, I truly believe that there is joy in giving. I mean, to me, in a personal note, I am happy when I see people that I love happy. So I am the oldest of two brothers, and my brothers lived in Colombia, in South America, with my mom. My mom is visiting. I wanted her to see the festival, but she was gonna be back. So my brothers will come and visit. One of them has. The other one has not had the chance to come and visit for immigration and issues, and that's another subject that we can take another completely, another program. But the point is that, when I am able to give something to those that I love, it makes me truly happy. When I see something when it's being built, and I think that's part of why I do what I do with AHAM, and I also think that, our team, this is not a one person, task. This is the entire group, the entire, the executive, guiding everybody else, but every single person who does here, and that's what does volunteer, not only in AHAM, but out there, any other nonprofit, any other volunteer, any one of yours, why do you give? Because to me, giving, it's a pleasure. I see how it makes me truly happy when I see that there is somebody who maybe I help a little bit to make that person's life eventually better and to do something positive. So I'm only, as she says, I'm determined, almost like my joy, true joy, and true selfishness is determined by the act of giving. And I think that is, it's something that is given in various religions. It's a principle that is a universal principle. When it's truly selfish, you truly feel happy about it.
That's right. There's so many lessons to talk about, so many things, but we're running out of time. And Patricia, it has been a pleasure to have you on the program. We will invite you back. We'll get Janet on here and some other people. I would love to get some of your students on the program and talk about their experiences going to college, like this young man that's working at Michelin. Maybe he could give us some insight and the blessing it was to have the help from your organization. And now he's giving back to the community and to his work. And this is what it's about, folks. So, Patricia, thank you so much for your time and just giving us so much insight into what is going on. And, folks, wherever you are, look in your community for ways to give back. If you want to help in the Hispanic community, you can do that. I promise there could be a language barrier. That sometimes is a drawback. I always make sure I have someone with me that can translate, because I don't do that, but it has worked. We
have now technology, right? So
right.
Now we have Google, or we have our phone, and immediately kind of helps and does that.
Yeah, I got two of those translator things on my phone, and I can just turn that on, and it slows it down, but at least you can communicate. So, Patricia, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. We will be in touch. I'll send you the information from Unity Health. I hope you get in touch with Diane Canada, with Lady Up America. We make connections, folks. This is how we succeed. We make connections. And everybody
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. And you have a great day. And we're going to go out today, play a little, I think it's salsa music. You tell me what it is. This is salsa, right?
Yes, it is. It is a form of salsa. Yes, and that is great. And once again, and I love salsa. We had a lot of that in the festival. We invite you to go and check it on our website. Please, if you can, if you're around, go volunteer for the Fall Home Festival. It will be a great cause. And I want to thank you personally and on behalf of all the AHAM members and all our students for having us in your program.
It's been my
Muchas
pleasure.
gracias.
And Missy Cross to you. Thank you so much, and I will talk with you soon. Goodbye.
Great. Thank you. Adios. Bye-bye.
will close this out with a little salsa. And may God bless America. May God bless organizations that Patricia represents, AHAM, Hispanic-American Women's Association. And may God bless you to give of yourself.